Good morning, everyone. Today is the 12th of June. It's another Monday, so we are doing another weekly market analysis. My name is Pedro. I'm the senior market analyst at Alphachain. And usually on this session, we are going to take a look at what happened last week in terms of news and how did the market reacted. And of course, the biggest catalyst for this week and how or what should we expect from the market based on those news, right? And this week's going to be quite busy. Central banks are going to be revising interest rates there's going to be the Fed, the ECB, and the BOJ. We already started last week with the Reserve Bank of Australia and the Bank of Canada, and it's going to finish basically next week, next Thursday on the 22nd of June with the Bank of England interest rate decision as well. Like, so in the space of basically 10 days, we are going to have all these interest rate decisions happening. So last week, as I mentioned, there wasn't any big news event in regards to the US. I think the only big news, it was on Thursday, as we always have the unemployment claims. And this was just related to the employment, right, to the labor market. And it was a little bit higher than expected. So we have been, since April, we are in this range, maybe between 220 to 240,000 unemployment claims. And this week or last week, we had another spike to 261. So if you take a look at what has been going on, so since, as I mentioned, since beginning of April, we have been basically within this range, except from the 11th of May, and now this number again. And this is a little bit of the concern that we can, or the market will start to pay attention to, because again, due to all the hikes that the Fed has been, that the Fed has done since last year. We are eventually expecting the unemployment to grow, and this unemployment claims is one of the first initial data points that you can focus and pay attention to when should you expect those numbers to increase the unemployment. So this is another spike, and it's a little bit of a concern in here. Aside from that, nothing much in the US last week. We did have the RBA interest rate decision, like in Australia, and it was another surprise. Like, they decided to hike another 25 basis points, going from 3.85% to 4.10%. Now, in Australia and in Canada, that decided and surprised the market again with another 25 basis points, going from 4.5% to 4.25%. But as you can see, both in Australia and in Canada, there was already a moment where they decided to not hike again, right? So in Canada, it has been the last hike, it has been in January. And after 2 unchanged rates, they decided again last week to hike again, right? So that's maybe a little bit of a concern with inflation and with market conditions, that they are still not happy or satisfied with the way the inflation is decreasing, and maybe how strong still maybe the economy is in these countries. In Australia, the inflation has actually increased. The last inflation data, it was actually higher than the previous month, and that's why most likely they decided again to increase, right? And this can read a little bit the path to what the Fed may do at this point, and now starts to focusing on what's going to happen this week. We are expecting, or the market at this point is expecting, an unchanged, right? The rate to stay unchanged at 5.25 next Wednesday, when you have the Fed meeting. However, there is actually, if you look then at the next meeting in July, in that meeting, there's at this point, the odds are that we are going to have another hike. So again, the path that the Bank of Canada and in Australia, they had, with at least one pause in between until maybe they reassess and try to, and then they make a new decision, either to hike or not. And I think that's that's what the Fed is going to do. So they're going to pause now, not hiking next Wednesday, just to reassess and to see how the economy is still dealing with all this hawkish approach that they had during this last 1 year, and to assess how is the economy reacting to it, how is the inflation number reacting to it, inflation that, and in particular CPI, which is going to be the last big data point before the Fed meeting, which is going to be tomorrow. So the Fed's going to meet, the meeting starts tomorrow on Tuesday. It's usually 2 days, Tuesday and then Wednesday they had the decision and then the press conference. And we have still CPI being announced tomorrow. So this one can be a key data point for what the Fed may do on Wednesday. If the inflation and the CPI comes out much worse than expected, or even maybe the CPI itself comes a little bit in alignment, but the core CPI comes much worse than expected, maybe that will be the only possibility or the only variable that would affect most likely the interest rate to be to have a hike in here on the 14th of June meeting. Otherwise, expect no hikes, expect to stay unchanged, and then we'll see what may happen in July. Now these odds, they may vary, they are always changing, but the reality is at this point we are expecting, or the market is expecting, a hike in July and to stay unchanged in June. So let's see, it's going to be important to pay attention to what may happen with the CPI tomorrow. The CPI that at this point, the market is expecting to go from 4.9% to 4.1%. This will be the lowest point all the way since, basically since summer 2021, like from 2 years ago. So the trajectory of the CPI is actually going down, maybe not as fast as the Fed would like, but it's going down. So that's good news. However, the core CPI, that's a little bit more of a concern in here. And the core CPI is expected to, at this point is at 5.5%. So at this point is even higher than the CPI, the normal CPI, and is expected to go from 5.5 to 5.2. Right, that it's a little bit sticky, and that can be one of the concerns from the Fed. So yes, we're going to have the interest rate decision next Wednesday. Just continue to focus in the US. Then you're going to have retail sales on Thursday. We also have another unemployment claims on Thursday, and then we finish with the consumer sentiment on Friday. Yeah, and this is also important to see. Right, it's important to see if the consumer sentiment is still high or not. It has been kind of around 60, so that still kind of shows that the people are confident, and the spending is still high. Yeah, so that's basically in regards to the US for this week. And then we have the ECB. Like in terms of the ECB, expecting another 25 basis points announcement to go all the way from 3.75 to 4%. Where are we? There we go. Right? So from 3.75 to 4%. Now ECB has been behind the curve. Right? They started to hike much later comparing with the Fed or even with the BOE, and at this point is expecting to be a 4%. Right? There was a based on even on the commentary from Christine Lagarde during the last meeting, is that the inflation of the CPI is still too high, and most likely they're going to continue, even maybe for the next meeting, there's going to be another increase. Now, there's a little bit of a concern in the Eurozone, even though the CPI and inflation has been decreasing at this point at 6.1%. It was 7 at this point is 6.1, which is quite it's quite good, and is expected to continue to decrease. However, we are starting to have kind of, if I'm not mistaken, the ECB and the Eurozone is kind of in a technical recession, the same with Germany. So again, we need to, or the ECB needs to balance a little bit this concern between what the effects and impact into the economy and the fight with the inflation. Right, so that's a little bit of a concern in the Eurozone. And then you have another one, which is going to be BOJ. It's going to be Friday morning, UK time, and it's expected to stay all the same, right? At minus 0.1%, and the BOJ, especially since the new governor Ueda took charge as a new governor of Bank of Japan, he actually has mentioned that the central bank would take at least up to 18 months before they conduct a policy review. So at this point, they're going to start to be dovish and to start with this kind of quantitative easing and to try to push the inflation down just like that. And what we are seeing is, as you have seen a bit, the yen has been losing. Has been decreasing, and we are basically almost at the same levels that we were back in September and October, when the Bank of Japan was forced to act and to intervene, forcing the yen to go to the upside, right? The value of the currency, they don't really want that to happen. So that's in regards to the Bank of Japan. Then, so that's basically in terms of the central bankers for this week. And then we have more data, starting with the UK. We have GDP. We have actually unemployment on Tuesday, and then we have the GDP on Wednesday. In regards to the unemployment, last month it was a big surprise in terms of the unemployment. There was a spike in there, and let's see what the data is going to be expecting this week. Expecting a 21.4%. As you can see, last week it was a little bit higher at 46.7%. And the GDP expecting to be at 0.2% on a monthly basis. We're also going to have unemployment in Australia. That's going to be on Thursday, to the rate to stay at 3.7%. That's what is expected. So here we are, expecting some big volatility this week in the market. Just one last point is in regards to China as well. There's going to be some data points in China, which if the retail sales and the production continue to not show a strength as is expected, there's maybe a possibility of stimulus measures in China with another rate cut in there. So trying to boom the economy, that's the approach from China at this point. Now, if we take a look into the market and what has been happening since last week, it was a little bit of a range. So we start always with the dollar index, just to take a look into what to expect from these major currency pairs. So last week price was somewhere in here after the NFP that went to the upside, and it was a little bit in the range, right? So the lack of data in the US, it forced the market to be a little bit in the range, but what you start having, it was actually starting to create new lower lows without price being able to create new high highs, and eventually that could lead to a move to the downside, especially if you actually look into the bigger picture. We actually had already broken these lows in here. So that's going to be interesting, right? Expect high volatility in the dollar this week with all the news and during the tomorrow CPI and then FOMC. So that's going to be interesting to see where the dollar is going to be by Wednesday. Right, so we have been in this rally since the beginning of May, and now it's starting to correct a little bit, and it's going to be interesting to see what may happen. Bigger picture, to be honest, wouldn't, in my opinion, maybe dollar could still go higher before any move to the downside. So I would like to see actually dollar going a little bit higher in there, but at this point, you are a little bit in the middle. Comparing from this low or from this high, there may be something in here that price could use to go to the upside. There's maybe something in here also that price could use to go to the downside. So when we are in the middle, it's a little bit tricky. I'm going to be curious to see, first of all, how price is going to react during the CPI, and then where price is going to be, where the dollar is going to be by Wednesday around the FOMC meeting, right? So yes, there's maybe a possibility for price to go a little bit lower. I would like to see maybe first this low has been broken before maybe aiming to go a little bit lower towards this level. Otherwise, we may continue to respect that, and we may go higher. maybe something in here could be interesting, or then even above that level can be something interesting on the dollar. Just a key levels to look for. Today we already opened the week with a move to the downside on the dollar. Yes, so that's a little bit of what we have in here. So looking then at the individual that the indices, quite volatile in here. Let's start with the S&P. So there you go. This is another pattern that we have seen for the last couple of weeks or so, which is basically the momentum to the upside that's completely visible. Like we are in this bullish momentum in the US indices, but within the week, a pattern that we have seen is usually on Tuesday or Wednesday. It's a little bit of a retracement to the downside, and then Thursday and Friday has been quite bullish. And that's a little bit of the pattern that we have since basically the middle of May, or even a little bit more in the beginning of May. You can then just check where we have a move to the downside, Tuesday or Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday go up, same, and then the same, and there you go. And now there are last two strong moves in the last 2 days of the week. Now, looking at the bigger picture, here we are really about to break above these highs from August. And this is basically the last index that hasn't really broken this one. Dow broke this level back in November last year. Nasdaq broke this level last month or so, right? So this last high that created this whirlpool is about to be broken as well on the S&P, and there's maybe some levels in here straight away above it where price could eventually react from. Even though we are in this bullish momentum and on the S&P, again, price has been offering opportunities to even look for some sell opportunities as it's moving upwards. So again, we may continue to have something like that, opportunities to go up and down in here. And let's see where we're going to be by tomorrow in CPI and then the FOMC, and if even whatever the Fed is going to do, it still have that much weight on the indices like it had last year. Like how this move to the upside is mostly also due to the enthusiasm and positivism about the AI that's going on. Like how these big tech companies have been quite bullish in this last couple of weeks or since the last month. And let's see if that momentum is going to continue. In regards to the S&P, that can be a little bit of a concern because that's mostly the companies that have been pushing the S&P to the upside. And if all of a sudden there is a turn, that's usually when maybe there's going to be a big sell-off on the S&P. So concerned with that. Now we're going to break this highs most likely this week, and let's see what's going to happen and where is price going to react from. It's not just because you broke this high that you're going to turn complete bullish. Be careful with the potential retracement to the downside. You may have this level in here that price could react. We also have this trend line in here that the S&P could continue to use as a support zone to continue to push price to the upside. But eventually, you could even take these lows, react from this previous level support resistance, and then continue to move to the upside. So I'm going to be curious as soon as you break this high, how price is going to react to, and this level in here can be quite interesting as well. So that's a little bit of the S&P for this week, and then you have Nasdaq. There you go. Nasdaq initially respected that double top with the specific target, which was in alignment with these ones, right? So we were within this range. So this was a great opportunity to sell last Wednesday. Again, similar to S&P. Tuesday or Wednesday, you have kind of a correction to the downside. Then Thursday and Friday, you have a bullish momentum. And it has been happening for something like that during these last couple of weeks or so. So we continue to be in this bullish momentum. Since we never broke this low, we didn't really open space to move to downside. So to be honest, I'm expecting new highs before even attempting to go again to the downside. We had a little bit of a correction here, creating kind of a triple top, but price respected initially this level. So yes, we're starting to have a lot of structure in here, creating this level of resistance. So you already know what may happen close to that level. We may have a fake out. Now we need to look to the left side to see actually where is price reacting from, and we are actually approaching this interesting zone in here. So there's maybe some kind of reaction to happen, maybe from this supply level that is in there, and it is fresh. So again, accumulation of highs just underneath an important zone. That's a little bit of a good PI to look for. We may have something like this. Even the retest to these lows could be quite interesting to happen. It maybe tomorrow or then on Wednesday. Again, big data to come out on the in here can be quite interesting. Bigger picture in here on the Nasdaq. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually, let's see how price is going to react somewhere in there, but eventually we may go all the way through and take these highs and maybe react from there. But before that, we may have that correction to the downside first, and then maybe the continuation. We may go all the way until here before aiming towards this level. So again, it's going to be interesting. Don't need to rush into the trades. Just wait for price to break some key levels before looking for the shorts. Just the same way that initially broke this trend line and broke these lows before then aiming to a short at the highs in there. That was kind of the setup that we looked for this last week. So maybe look for something similar in here. No need to rush. No need to feel FOMO with this kind of moves. Then we have Dow, right? So Dow has been quite just not like that. Dow has been quite bullish as well, correcting all the way from the lows, and we are approaching a really interesting zone, which is somewhere in here, right? Something that I've been waiting for. To be honest, we just already took this highs, corrected, and now we are within this interesting upper trend line. So keep an eye on the trend line as well to see whenever we kind of break or not this level to maybe provide some kind of bearish signals. Initial reaction from here, it happened. Price went all the way down with respect to the next demand. Now continues to go higher, and we may start to look some momentum. It will be interesting to see if you manage to break this low or break below the trend line until maybe you get towards that level. I think that will be one of my favorites to look for, to take out these highs into there before maybe aiming to look for a potential short on the Dow. Now I want to see some lows being broken first, or some confirmation before even aiming to do that. But let's see. With this big news and now this compression here, we may get closer to some kind of move like that. So again, it's going to be interesting to see what may happen in here. And then we have DAX. All right, so DAX going to the upside. It reacted from this level that you looked for. DAX initially broke that double top, creating all-time highs in here, corrected completely, reached its target, and now moving to the upside. So it's about to break these highs. It respected this demand zone, and most likely are going to continue to move higher, getting a little bit closer to this level. And question mark is, are you going to create new all-time highs and break these highs, or kind of react from something and then aiming to move to the downside? Anytime we are approaching a all-time highs, it's a bit tricky. We don't have anything on the left to help us, to give us the support of maybe what's next and maybe where to look for a reaction. Since you don't have that information, it's harder than to predict actually where the reversal is going to be. Is price going to create kind of a double top in here using this high and kind of create a double top? Maybe. Or price may create another fake out and then maybe move to the downside. There's still orders in here that can be a little bit of a correction. Let's see eventually when the DAX gets there. Looking at the other currency pairs, right? We have basically dollar now continue to move to the downside. So the other currency pairs that you look for, and I would recommend everyone to do this analysis, is again the euro index. And the euro index is going to be quite interesting, right? Because you're going to have the ECB press conference next Thursday, and if you compare the previous ECB's press conference, maybe accepting not the previous one, the one previous to that, the tendency is to have a sell-off on the euro. This was the last ECB press conference on the 4th or 5th of May, and since then you had this bearish momentum on the euro. I think the meeting before that, maybe you had a little bit of a move to the upside, but the tendency is, and if you compare the movement on the euro pairs in alignment on the same day of the ECB, is to see the ECB go down. So it's going to be interesting to see, first and foremost, where is going to be this euro in this by next Thursday, when you have the when we have next meeting. To be honest, I would prefer actually to see the euro going to the upside until Thursday, and then to look for another move to downside. Maybe a reaction from here could be interesting. Faking out this size could be interesting as well. Bear in mind that even looking at this time frame, we just broke these walls, right? So this actually can be seen as a move to the downside. Now we kind of broke a little bit above this level and broke this trend line. So this actually can be a good correction in the shorter time frame to look to the upside, and price actually has respected this demand zone. So you may have a little bit more of a correction or a move to the upside on the euro. But bigger picture, because of this break of this low, you may actually eventually do something, either respect this level and go down, there's still orders in here, or even take this high eventually and get a little bit closer to this level, or all the way there before maybe moving to the downside. So Thursday is going to be quite an interesting move. If we have a correction to the upside during our week until some important level, I will become bearish again in here on ECB, on the euro index. So it's going to be interesting also to see what the euro is going to do. But this euro index is not just related to the euro dollar, it's also reacted to the euro, euro yen, euro CAD, and euro pound, and all those have quite strong weight within this index. So this is the view for the euro index. We may have another move to downside. It's going to depend of where price is going to be by Thursday. Otherwise, if it still continues to move down, then eventually you can have a correction in there. So let's see what's going to happen. And then we have the Bank of Japan, right, which has been quite bearish in here. So moving to the downside all the way. And we have been looking for that specific target, right? So if you have been watching the previous sessions, you know that we have been bearish all the way through, especially since this one also broke, respected the highs. We have continued to be bearish. Anytime price breaks new lows, it just keeps respecting new highs. So there's no break to the upside just yet. We also have this strong trend line in here, and we just reached one of the first levels, which would be the reaction from this previous level of support resistance. This was never reacted from there, so that's one of them. And then the final one, or one of the final targets that we have for this bearish momentum, it will be somewhere here. Right now, this level, and then this level, this is where last year we had this was the first intervention from the Bank of Japan, that had a big move then to the upside. Now this level in here on the dollar yen, it was at 145. So that's represented 145. And we are going to see in a bit is when you compare where this yen index is comparing with dollar yen, the dollar yen is quite far away, while this yen index is already approaching this level. Dollar yen is way farther away from the same level that you are looking at, which makes it a different dynamic in here when looking now at this yen index. On the other hand, if we continue, this is my favorite final target, where maybe we can have a big correction to the upside on the yen index. So let's see. Now that we are reacting from this level of structure, this support resistance in here, we may have a little bit of a correction. We already had this morning. As you can see, the reaction from it's already quite good, but we need to eventually break these highs, right? So we need to start breaking highs. As you can see, we have been respecting the highs. We have been respecting the highs. Maybe in here is the first small break of a high. And if this is already a break of a high, need to check with detail. If this is already a break of a high, then eventually price it's free to go all the way through in there. If you break above this high, then you can go there, maybe retest this trend line as well that we have in here. So it's going to be interesting to see which direction now, even for today, which direction you're going to break first. Break the highs, may have a move there. Otherwise, if we continue to break the lows, eventually we are going to get closer and closer to the target. Again, big news events in Japan. Mostly it's going to be by the end of the week, next Friday. So it's going to be interesting to see the movement to the downside is happening, and it's something that we have been predicting for quite a while. Looking at the individual currency pairs, here we are similar to the dollar index. We have the euro moving to the upside. Again, bigger picture, I think eventually euro may want to go a little bit lower. This will okay, it's an okay reaction from there, but eventually I think we're going to go lower. But meanwhile, we may have a correction that can go all the way above these highs or even above this level into this zone. So that's a little bit maybe what we're going to have. Again, similar to the euro index as well, we may have this correction to the upside on the euro before until we reach that ECB press conference where maybe we have another move to the downside. Again, the last ECB press conference, it was in here, and we had this big momentum to the downside throughout the full month of May until finally corrected. And now this month of June, we are having a little bit of a correction. So it's going to be interesting to see again where it's going to be the euro by next Thursday. Of course, we are going to have FOMC before, so expect some volatility on the euro even during the FOMC. But let's see even if the FOMC is going to have as much volatility, because last month, for example, the last meeting, it was not that volatile. The FOMC, it was quiet. So if the Fed doesn't really surprise anyone, we may have a quiet data point again. So we are about to break these highs, and it may continue to go higher. In here, a lot of it has been compressed, so it may continue to go to the upside today on the euro. Maybe a little bit of a correction now after taking these highs. We may have a little bit down before maybe continue to the upside. This was a nice reaction actually in here today, this morning, where it actually already continued to go higher. So that's again interesting to see. Bigger picture, just to give a little bit more of a zone. Yeah, maybe something in there or something here could be interesting on the euro, where to look for a potential correction in here, right? We had also this strong trend line. We finally broke it with this highs, continuation last week, and then we continue to go higher. So question mark is where is going to be this bigger retracement until where it's going to be. Looking at the pound dollar, right? So again, similar story. So we were bearish since we basically took those highs, and this was our target. We reached that target, and since then we have been bullish, right? This one never really managed to break this high. If that happened, I would have been much more bullish. But there, either way, there was a good opportunity to look for longs. Price finally managed to break it, and now we continue to go higher. I'm looking for price to go above this, at least above this high. Maybe a little bit of a correction in here. We may retest this level again, and then maybe continue to go higher towards this level. Bear in mind that the pound dollar, we actually broke these highs, so this can actually be seen as an engulf to the upside. We just have this correction, went all the way to the demand zone that was still fresh. Everything in here has been compressed. So this can be a typical continuation kind of a move, right? Again, just to go a little bit more in detail, we have an important high on the left side. We kind of break it a little bit, fake out that level, go down a little bit. We may have some kind of lows in here with a fresh demand in here, and we fake out the low, react from the demand, and now we may resume to move to the upside. There was a similar move on the Aussie dollar last week on the lower time frame. So this can be something similar in here on the pound. We may continue and may even go all the way and break new highs in here until price may go all the way and reach the next level of structure, which is maybe a little bit higher in here or even a little bit in there. So again, can be some opportunities in here on the lower time frame that you can find on the pound to look for shorts. So yeah, just play with it. Also, the way price is approaching that level can be interesting. If it loses momentum or not, it's something to keep an eye on the pound. Again, it's going to be some news, unemployment, GDP, and with the BOJ interest rate in the next week. Euro pound, quite the opposite, has been moving to the downside. It finally broke these lows, and you already know after breaking lows, usually you have a correction. Now, first target to be somewhere in here, and then let's see if we manage, if it continues to move to the downside, or if it starts breaking, we may go higher. We may go first to this highs and then maybe towards to that level, right? So it's due maybe a correction after this big momentum to the downside. So that may happen in here. This morning we have seen a little bit of a bullish momentum on the euro pairs as well. So again, quite typical. After taking important lows, a little bit of a correction. Next target is the supply in there. So let's see what's going to happen. But nice move so far on the euro pound. We have this Aussie. which has been quite bullish as well. So reacting, approaching a little bit of this level can be interesting, a little bit of a correction. Let's see how price is going to react from here. So I've been quite bullish as well in the beginning of June in here. So let's see what may happen in here. We're going to have also unemployment in Australia. We had the interest rate decision, and since then Aussie has been quite bullish. So looking forward to see how price is going to react around these signs. Are we going to break them or not? Are we going to have some kind of correction in here? Just something to keep an eye on the Aussie. Yep, Euro Aussie, a little bit of the opposite, moving to the downside, maybe a little bit of correction. Let's see how price also is going to react from that level. And then you have the NPS, right? So dollar yen has been quite volatile in here. Within this range, it's not really moving if you compare with the dollar yen, with the yen index, that has been moving down. But then we also have dollar moving down, and that's why we end up with this dollar yen ranging. Just to compare to what I was mentioning before in terms of the level itself, this is the level, the 145 when you had the first intervention, and the level that the yen index is about to reach is exactly the same in there, right? So there's a big gap, a big difference and distance between where the dollar yen is and where the yen index is. So again, let's see which side we're going to break in here, which side we're going to break first on this side in here on this dollar yen. If you compare with the rest of the yen pairs, they've been quite and much more volatile. We have Euro yen that most likely is going to try to approach these highs again. If price gets there, I think I'm going to be a little bit bearish. For me, this was a break in here, broke this lows as well. So depending on how price is going to react, we may go down from there. So keeping an eye on that potential setup on the Euro yen, something that I want to pay attention to, especially if you're around this level by Thursday. Again, with the ECB, it's going to be interesting to see. So expect high volatility as well on the dollar, on the Euro yen. Then you have pound yen. It's been super bullish all the way through, not managing to break any lows. We have kind of a little bit of this correction at this point. So we just broke this high all the way from 2016. We are reaching these levels in here back from 2015. This important level of support resistance. We may go a little bit higher, or continue to go higher a little bit more. So let's see what kind of a move we're going to have in here. It has been quite bullish, so careful. Any move has been always to the upside. Maybe whenever the yen index finally reacts from that key level, then you have a big correction to the upside and this one to the downside. So that may happen in there. And the Aussie yen, a little bit more of the same in here. Then you have CAD. Quite volatile last week with the interest rate, and then also the unemployment. And we have been again back to this range in here. So the highs managed to respect it, and we are back in here. So question mark is, are we going to finally break below these lows, or kind of holding it and continue maybe turning again and moving to the upside? We are in this compression in here. Yeah, so looking just to take that technical price action in here. Yeah, are you going to, is this level of support going to hold again? Yes or no? And then you have dollar franc Swiss, which turn a little bit more correction in here. We may have all this compression. This is one of the pairs that I'm going to try to look for, maybe some move to the downside. I would like to see eventually price going to that level before maybe continue to go higher. I mentioned this already. Bigger picture, this may be the target. Maybe price can go all the way until here before maybe continue to the downside, but I would like to see a proper correction all the way to these lows, which are still fresh, before maybe doing this. Yeah, that may happen. Let's see, price may go there again. So let's see what's going to happen in here on the dollar franc Swiss. And then we have gold. Gold has been quite volatile as well, but a little bit still within this range, just to follow what the dollar has been doing. So it's going to be interesting to see. So we have this high and we have these lows, and price has been trading within this level. There's a potential to get a little bit closer in here, then go down. There's new zone in there. There's maybe another one even close at the extreme. So is gold going to continue to be a little bit like this? Let's see what's going to happen in here and which direction we are going to break. Are we going to break the highs or are we going to break the lows? It's something to keep an eye on as well. And then you have oil. Oil has been super volatile. Like last week we had, last weekend we had after the OPEC meeting, the decision to cut 1 million barrels production. Then there was some rumors of a potential nuclear deal between US and Iran. Then it was rejected by Washington, but meanwhile we have this really strong volatility going on in here. We have been within this range, kind of between 67, 66, all the way to 74. So let's see if this is going to hold again and price is going to continue to push and go higher, or we are going to break below this level and continue this bearish momentum. Right, so we are within this range. And that's kind of what we're going to be looking for in here on oil. Yeah, so expect maybe some volatility as well, even with the FOMC, to see if they're going to be risk on or risk off after that. Most likely that can affect also the movement in the oil. And to conclude, we are going to look at the crypto. It was another crazy weekend. In the crypto space, right? A lot of volatility, price retesting all the way the lows at around 25,300. Some news that came out, like the Binance US not being able to deposit or withdraw money in dollars. We saw some kind of volatility going on in here, and there has been maybe other news in the crypto space. So we are a little bit in this correction after such a bullish momentum in the first quarter of the year, all the way since April, that we kind of started to correct a little bit. Now, even though we have been correcting, we are still far away from the lows beginning of the year. So this may be just a correction and the price may continue to go higher. Personally, I'm still looking at this level as a key zone. As long as price kind of holds this level, it may continue to move higher. If we kind of break below that level, that can be a little bit of concern, and you may move to the a little bit more to the downside. So we are reacting a little bit from this previous level support resistance. So let's see. Price is compressing quite a lot as well. There's maybe some kind of strong move to the upside if all of a sudden we break one of these highs. So this level in here kind of needs to break to the upside. Otherwise, it keeps respecting and we continue to move down. So I still have a little bit of this on underneath these walls. We can even fake out these walls into that level. Let's see what's going to happen in here and where we're going to be also. Even if FOMC is going to have an impact on that, it doesn't really affected that much this year, the movement in the crypto space. Whatever is going on with the Fed, it was much more correlated last year. So let's see again what's going to happen. Volatility up and down. Just be careful. Always have your risk under control. Don't over leverage. And yes, there's a lot of opportunities in here. Don't feel FOMO. Even if price goes up one time, eventually it's going to go back to the same structure. Then maybe there's going to be a new opportunity at the same way. If it goes down, it goes back there. So there's going to be opportunities. So there's no need to feel much FOMO to rush or run behind the price in here. And Ethereum, a little bit more of the same. We managed to break a little bit these lows from May, creating new lows now in here. We are still kind of reacting within the same demand zone. After on this, we have initially reacted from this one, now reacting a little bit more close to the extreme with this all these left shoulders in there. So let's see, again, similar to BTC, if we kind of break below this level, you may open the space to go much farther down. As long as kind of this level in here keeps holding, there's maybe still a chance to keep pushing the price to the upside. We have the supply level, we have that one. So again, let's see what's going to happen in here. Bigger picture, the levels itself, and they're quite good. We may actually continue to go down Let's see, if you do break below that level, then you try to reassess where's maybe the next zone to look for. There's maybe something in here to look for, and then there's maybe below this low something else that you can look for. This one here looks nice, 1,335, then even a little bit lower. But with time, you're going to be looking at those zones whenever we get there. And that's it for me, guys. Thank you very much again for watching the session. Any comments, feel free to post below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel as well. Yes, with that being said, good luck for today. A lot of volatility. Let's see what the dollar is going to do. Let's see if the indices continue this bullish run, or if there's going to be some kind of reversal happening this week. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye bye.